Start the recording. Here we go.
Okay, we set?
Yep, all set.
Okay, I guess I'll call the annual meeting of the Board of Water Commissioners to order. I guess we can have reading of the minutes of the previous meeting. So we need a motion, or what do we need to do there, Judy?
I believe, Bill, I believe we need a motion to accept and approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept and approve the minutes.
A second.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so carried. This time I'd like to designate Attorney Clunin as temporary chairman of the annual meeting for the purpose of the election of officers.
As temporary chairman, I call for nominations for the president of the Board of Water Commissioners.
I nominate Dennis Croswell for president of Kingston Water Department.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations? There being no other nominations, I call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Being unanimous approval, Commissioner Croswell is nominated and elected as chairman, and I will resign as temporary chair. At this time, turn the chair back to President Croswell.
Okay, now I ask for nominations for the position of secretary.
Nominate Bob Mizzelski.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Not hearing any, I'll close nominations. Ask for those in favor of Bob as secretary.
Aye.
Okay, those opposed? Okay, carried. Congratulations, Bob, for another year.
Oh, thank you.
Committee assignments. Are there any proposals to change the current committee assignments as in the past?
Well, since we're waiting for the appointment of another commissioner, do we want to hold off on that until we have a full commission?
Well, I guess my only issue would be getting someone, Harold was on the finance committee, and so how many people are on the finance committee right now?
One,
One. Should we have at least another of the current members? And
probably. That's a good
Okay.
idea.
so I guess either Peg or Joanne would be the only choices to be the second person on the finance committee, at least at this time. And if we get another new member, then I guess we can rearrange the committees.
Good idea.
Fine with that.
So either one of you want to volunteer to be on the finance committee?
I will, Dennis.
Joanne?
Sure.
Okay,
I mean, I'll go back on. I was before. And then
Correct.
Harold took over.
okay. So why don't we place Joanne in that slot, at least for now that we have two members of the board on that committee, because that's actually an ongoing active committee every month to review the bills and accounts.
So to review the bills and accounts while we're doing this virtual, would I come into the office on a day, or what would I do?
How are we
How would I
doing
do
that,
that?
Judy?
Matt, why don't you explain how you're doing that?
For the last however many months we've been doing this, I've just been sending the warrant sheets. And then that's when we have come back together, we can have them signed, or I know Bob's dropped them off and Peg has signed and scanned them. So that's just sending those sheets. And if you have a question on a specific bill, I can send you the detail.
Okay.
We're trying not to send the whole stack of vouchers out. Not just because it's onerous and it's bringing a huge stack out of the office and into your homes. It seems to be working.
And we're all set for this month.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Hey, Jim.
Seeing no other business at the annual meeting, I'll ask for a motion to conclude the annual meeting.
I'll make a motion to conclude the annual meeting.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. Thank you. Moving on now.
You're going to set a date for the next annual meeting?
Sure. The next meeting, the annual meeting is scheduled for June 9th, 2021.
Perfect.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the June meeting of the Board of Water Commissioners to order.
We got to make a motion to come out of from one meeting, from the annual meeting to the regular meeting, don't we?
Oh, okay, do we? I thought we just opened up the annual meeting.
You did. You just adjourned till June next year.
Okay, so what do we need now? Just opening the regular meeting, the June meeting?
Right, like you normally would.
Okay. Well, I hereby declare the June meeting of the Board of Water Commissioners called to order. Reading of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll
I
make
see
a
no-
motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. Presentation of bills and accounts.
I move we accept the bills and accounts as presented.
Do I have a second? Peg, okay, got a second.
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Yeah, I can hardly hear you, Peg.
I don't know why. Is
Okay, that's better.
that better?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Accept the bills and accounts? Those opposed? Carried. COVID-19. You got an update for us, Judy?
Yeah, we have a few things. The first thing is the office. I think City Hall, the mayor is going to open City Hall on the 22nd on a limited basis in terms of the hours of operation and things. We've been able to, using the pneumatic tube that we have, we've been able to provide all the business office functions without opening our doors. We are anxious to allow people to come back in, but I don't want to do that until we can get those plexiglass dividers installed. The city carpenter, DPW superintendent has given him permission to, work on ours just as he is for the other offices. There was a shortage of plexiglass. That work got delayed. But I think, if it's not the 22nd, it'll be the week after. But in the meantime, we're still able to operate pretty efficiently with the door closed. I want to we talked about the finances, and I know, the city is watching their finances very carefully. And Matt and I, we're doing the same. So if you give me a second, I want to just share my screen and just show you a couple things that Matt and I have been working on. Maybe we're getting there. All right, here we go. So, as we know, this all happened. Let me back up here. This all happened in the beginning of the second quarter. So, this is the last 5 years of water sales. So, this is bills comparing the first quarter. In our quarters, even though we're broken up into different billing zones, our quarters are the traditional January, February, March is our first quarter. And you look at the last 5 years, 2019 was the lowest. Water sales declined in 2019. I'm not entirely sure why, but Matt's tracking it and it's going back up in 2020, which was a good sign. So we were looking at that, but since anecdotally, office, we know we think we're billing, the consumption is up or it's where it should be. And we think our collections are coming and people are paying. Maybe there's some that are a little less, but pretty much they are. So here's what I tried to do to kind of look at, this is our billing zones. We're divided into 7 different billing zones. And zone 1, which is, uptown, say Washington Avenue to the city line, that's up 10% in the second quarter, comparing the second quarter of 2020 to the second quarter of 2019. Zone 2 is our uptown business district. That's where all the restaurants are. And it's also, we're in Midtown where there's some smaller rental units that aren't huge consumers anyway. So those water sales are down anyway, 9%. Those water sales are down 9%. I don't know where that echo's coming from, but zone 3 is up a little bit. Zone 13 is up a little bit. Zone 15, zone 5 is up. And zone 6 is still being read. It won't be done till the end of the month. But 3 and 6 are really very similar. So I think finances are going to be okay. I can't say for sure, but I certainly think so. I don't know, Matt, if you want to add anything to that. I mean, it just kind of gives us a little snapshot. We are looking at it to make sure that everything is status quo, that we're able to, meet our budget numbers. So Matt, I don't know if you have anything you need to add there or.
I think that about covers it. We're
Okay.
we are.
Currently-
Mayor just joined us.
Currently, Town of Ulster is offline.
No, they're back on.
Okay,
They're fully back on.
okay. But they were off for a while.
A month. They were off for about a month at our request because of the ongoing work with the transmission mains. It was just easier to do it with reduced flows. But now we're past that point, and they came back on. Monday they came on for 8 hours. Tuesday they came on for 16 hours, and today this is the first full 24-hour, 700,000 gallon a day.
Okay.
So we're back. So that was the first thing I wanted to share. I think our finances are going to be okay. The second thing we need to do is talk about the plant air conditioning. I know I sent that out in the board packet. We have a proposal from Jeff Lau, Plumbing and Heating, to put the air conditioner in the main operations floor at the plant. I think I articulated the reasons why. One of the issues we have at the plant is we have 5 people working in a very confined space in the room where our operations, where the computers are for the SCADA. You have the chief operator's desk there. It's all in one great big room. If we had air, we'd be able to, out on that operating floor where the filter controls are, we'd be able to put the desk for the lab technician and our chief operator out there, and it would give everybody else be able to social distancing, have some added benefits of, right now the chief operator is a manager. If he wants to talk to any of his employees, there's absolutely no privacy. Everybody can hear every phone call he has. His desk is right next to theirs. There's no space. And also would absolutely down the road allow us to add another bathroom there, which is something that we need, and to make some other improvements down the road. Previously talked to Dennis about that. He called me on when he got the board packet, and I'm getting another price from a heating and air conditioning firm. Just have 2 bids. He hasn't been able to do a site visit yet. I spoke to him earlier this week. But he will be there before the end of the week, and by next week I should have another price. The cost of this is, the price we got from Lau Plumbing and Heating is $11,900. The money to fund this would come out of the existing equipment line that we have for the plant. I spoke to Derek at length. We had originally included money in there to replace some turbidimeters and controllers on the filters that we didn't think we would be able to get support from the manufacturer or parts, and that has changed. And Derek is very comfortable that he can do just fine with the parts. There's enough money in that line remaining for the parts, and that this would be a good use of those funds. I would ask you to consider that if you think this is something we really should do, to allow me to proceed by getting at least one other quote, if not two. I could also call, there's another firm that was suggested I could call, and that we contract a cost not to exceed $11,900. We go with the low bidder. So.
I think it's a good idea.
You need a motion on that to accept it?
To spend that kind of money, I'd appreciate it.
I'll make that motion
I'll second it.
for $11,900 for an air conditioning system in the lab space,
A cost not to exceed,
not to exceed.
because I'm assuming if we get at least one other, if not two other quotes, if they're lower, we're going to go with the lowest responsible. We're not asking anyone to give us quotes that isn't a responsible contractor.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, if not, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried.
Okay, on the COVID continuing, we have the issue of, do you want to continue the waiver of the late fees? Just a couple of things. Zone 4, every zone has had their late fees waived, except for Zone 4. Zone 4 is coming up. So in theory, we could continue it for, Matt, help me here, and the day before the next, until the next July meeting, and then Zone 4 would all 7 of our zones would have had their fees waived, and then we can consider it in July. The only thing I'd add is what we're seeing is some of the larger apartment complexes in town are habitual late payers, and they pay the late fee. And now suddenly we're losing significant income because they continue to pay a month in arrears, but now they're not paying the late fee. So it's just something to consider that a lot of our residential customers are late. You know, they know our policy is very strict, and we have to tell them either they don't owe the late fee and they're pleasantly surprised, or it gets carried over as a credit on their future bills. So people are, you know, we're applying this across the board, which in the way we're supposed to do it, but we are losing some revenue because of some of these larger corporations that are taking advantage of it.
What are we talking about in terms of revenue, Judy? Revenue loss?
This is a Matt question.
Give me 1 second, sorry.
While Matt's looking that up, I would just add that, you know, it could be a good opportunity for us to give this last neighborhood, if you will, a shot at this. And then when we meet in July, have maybe a more broader conversation about if we were to continue a program, you know, would we potentially want to change, you know, whether residential customers versus commercial customers, or based on usage, or however we wanted to do it. You know, we could always kind of create a tiered program and then allow that for all of the, you know, the different neighborhoods, if you will, for the next time.
Right, and I agree. I think that's a good suggestion. I also would say that we talked briefly in the office today, and it's really difficult to not apply late fees across the zone. It can be done if we have a very limited list. It's essentially unchecking some of those boxes. It can be done, but we wouldn't want to do it. It's going to be prone to human error, I think, in some cases, although we have a pretty good staff. We don't make too many, but anyway. Matt, go ahead.
So right now I have 5 total zones where I have the numbers on. We're approaching $30,000 in late fees between those 5 zones that we haven't added on. So about 30 grand. And we got 2 more. We had a due date yesterday. I don't have the numbers for that yet, but then we get to do zone 4. We'll have a complete 7 zones. So.
But Matt, does that include, I think last quarter or last month, we had one large. I don't know
That
if it was-
$30,000 does not include the town of Ulster. So if you
Okay.
I didn't include them in that number there.
Town of Ulster always pays on time. I think they had an internal hiccup, and they were pleasantly surprised that the board had waived all late fees. So that's not income that we would ever have seen. It was very extraordinary, their circumstance.
Yeah, based on what they normally pay, that was a large number.
It was huge, yeah.
Yeah, it was almost 22,000.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board in regards to the waiving of the penalty fees for one more month?
What
We haven't included Zone 7 ever. I think it might be fair to include them for one more month and then end it.
I'm in agreement with that.
So that due date is June 23rd for zone 4.
I agree.
And then we can revisit it in July.
That
And
sounds
the-
like a good idea.
The proposal then would to extend that waiver until the next meeting or the day before our meeting or the day of the meeting?
They have the meeting, right, Matt?
Well, there is a due date the day before the meeting. So if we just want to do the one extra zone, we just do to the June 23rd due dates. And then we can always back to, because the late fees won't be put on at the July meeting for that next zone. They won't be done until the end of that week. So we could always go back to the July 7th day if we wanted to.
The way it typically works on the July 7th is a due date, but you have to allow for postmarks for several days. So those late fees the system doesn't put those late fees on. In fact, we manually have to tell the system to do it for about a week after the due date.
So what date are you recommending, Matt, we extend this to?
June 23rd.
Okay.
But if the board elects to extend it at the July meeting, Zone 5, which would be due the day before the meeting, could still take advantage.
Okay, so the motion right now, though, in
Right,
front of us would be to extend it to June 23rd.
right.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion? Otherwise, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried.
One other thing, and I'm going to do my little screen share again. One of the issues I think that we have to grapple with is the notion of video conferencing. So, hang on. The video conferencing, Bill had a motion. Sorry. Let's see if I can stop working, darn it. All right, never mind. Bill had a motion to, and Bill, can you read that? Or Matt, can you share your screen? Because there's something.
I don't have it here.
All right.
My screen sharing is not enabled.
Okay, we'll figure that out.
It's it's a motion to be entertained that should any member not be able to attend a meeting, he or she may make a request to attend by means of a teleconference, and that would be conducted in accordance with section 289 of the it's Article 7 of the Open Meetings Laws. I think it's sections 100X et sec and following. In other words, they would have to comply with the Open Meetings Law requirements. And that such attendance would constitute attendance at the meeting with the authority to vote and also serve as a quorum, for purpose of quorum. But there's a resolution.
So, yeah, Matt was able to do that. This came
This was-
about, Mayor had a staff meeting this morning, and it was brought up that the governor's, I believe it's the governor's executive order will expire before our next meeting. And so we would no longer be allowed to do video conferencing meetings. And quite honestly, they work fairly well. And until the vaccine, I'm not sure that, there's a reason that we need to all be in the same room. That's up to every individual, but at least with this resolution, we would be allowed to have people attend our meetings and participate as a commissioner via video conference.
So we're asking for a motion to approve that resolution.
I have a motion.
I'll make the motion, we approve the resolution.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. Is there an expectation that the governor, at least for this purpose, would extend his executive order?
The only thing that the executive order really changes, Dennis, is that under the current, with the exception, should anyone be attending by means of a teleconference, they have to identify where they're located.
Okay.
And the waiver does not require that. They don't have to, the governor's change to it says they don't have to do that. If he doesn't extend it, I think, talking to Judy about it, for example, Bob would have to identify where he's coming from, and people would have the right to attend the meeting at Bob's house. It's kind of a screwy deal.
Lock the door first.
I don't think it's going to happen, but
Yeah.
no reason. Actually, what people would most likely do is, I would think that the host of the meeting, they're anticipating you have a regular meeting at, for example, the water department, and one member would call in. That's
Yeah.
what the anticipation.
So the expectation for July would be, we'd continue doing Zoom.
Right.
At this point.
Maybe even in the future. It seems like it's a good idea. Doesn't have to just be because, because there's a virus outstanding.
No, we had a public, Matt, we had a public bid opening this afternoon in the office, and we had bidders attend on Zoom. It was really quite efficient. I mean,
Very good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time.
yeah. So,
Mayor, what is the city's plan, at least with the Common Council?
So as of now, we have until July 7th, I believe the order was expanded to. I think our thought is that we're just going to keep an eye on, I think that the order will continue to keep getting renewed as long as the governor still has in place the order that you can't have more than 10 people together in the same place. And so until that is lifted and that number gets high enough that you could have a public meeting and not have to turn any public away because of size limits of the space, this will probably continue, I would assume, for quite some time. I think that they're going to keep upping this. That would be or they're going to have to rewrite something altogether to make something more specific for this. But at least until that 10-person requirement rule is changed drastically, I don't think that you can publicly have a meeting and only allow 10 people to come. So.
10 would also include the Common Council, wouldn't it?
Right, yeah, so,
So you wouldn't even,
right. So I think their intent is to continue to, that it's going to continue to get renewed for quite some time.
Good.
okay. And Judy, I mean, we're doing all the other business as normal though, right? I mean, people that need permits to
Yeah.
do anything with, that's still occurring.
Yes, and as I indicated before, I mean, that pneumatic tube, who knew 20 years ago when we installed it that we'd be using it like this? The tube, just like a bank, they put, there's money in, we have the night deposit out there, the box, the lock box that they can put their bills in, and we even have a cooler out there with a, that you can drop your samples in. So there's very little that we're not able to do. We're installing meters, we're making taps. I mean, we're still doing all our operations. I'm just reluctant to open our door until we have those plexiglass panels installed. And I know that the city just got the plexiglass to be able to do that, and the city carpenter will get on it, and we're just gonna have to wait until they get ours done. But we're in a pretty good position to be able to continue to serve everybody using that pneumatic tube.
Okay, when did we start going out and doing water meter installations and going in people's homes?
About a week, 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, the guys have their N95 masks on. They, any place that they're not comfortable in, they know they can just decline, but that hasn't happened.
Okay, so we're pretty much back in full operation then.
Pretty much. I mean, right now we're doing a lot of meter installs for the parks because they're getting up and running. Cemeteries, that's our usual seasonal stuff. That was delayed a little bit this year, so they're out there doing that.
Okay. That it for COVID then?
That's it for COVID. Yeah, that was a lot. I
Okay.
apologize.
Not a problem. Cooper Lake improvements.
Okay. I'm gonna do the screen share thing again if I'm successful. Hopefully I am. Somehow it's not liking me, but we can.
There you go.
There we go. Nope. Oh, never mind. I am in the wrong spot. Here we go. All right. So I've been working with our environmental attorney on our seeker. Just to kind of recap. This is the Cooper Lake project, the Cooper Lake aspect, the dam rehabilitation in and of itself is a type 2 action and doesn't require any further examination under seeker. The temporary connection or the emergency connection to the Ashokan is an unlisted action. So it requires a seeker review. So working with CDM and Schnabel, I filled out part 1 of the environmental assessment. Working with Dan Rosow, our environmental attorney, we've gone through the part 2 checklist. I think I sent a note out and it's been posted up on our website. The long story short is there are no significant environmental impacts of the Ashokan connection. And this is the motion that Dan is recommending that we adopt. It's a motion of non-significance under seeker for that action, for the Ashokan connection rather. And it's a little bit lengthy, but he thought it was important to be a little lengthy. So anyway, that's what I don't know if everybody can read that.
It's hard to read.
Okay, let me go through it a little bit. It's a whole page, so it's hard to get it up on the screen. On May 13th, 2020, the Board of Water Commissioners of the City of Kingston was designated the seeker lead agency status for the proposed temporary emergency connection to the New York City DEP Ashokan Reservoir to install a temporary emergency connection to potentially obtain up to 2 million gallons per day of water from the New York City Department of Environmental Protection during the construction of the dam rehabilitation project when the stored water supply from Cooper Lake will be reduced. Previously, Part 1 of a full environmental assessment form was completed by the Kingston Water Department and its consultants, CDM Smith and Schnabel Engineering, which was later circulated to the potential involved agencies. See Appendix A. This whole resolution is actually 44 pages long. Previously, the Board of Water Commissioners had rendered a secret determination on September 11th, 2019, and amended on November 13th, 2019, with respect to the relationship of the rehabilitation of the dam and temporary connection to the Ashokan Reservoir for purposes of seeker review. The board is not reviewing these projects separately. Rather, when reviewing this project in its entirety, the rehabilitation of Cooper Lake Dam is clearly a type 2 action, and he cites the statute, and as such does not warrant further consideration in the EAF. It is also distinct from the work on the Ashokan connection, both temporally and geographically. Under the circumstances, impermissible segmentation does not occur when seeker has defined one element of an overall project as a type 2 action, which is exempt from environmental review, and the lead agency properly evaluates the remaining portions of the proposed project under seeker. After a thorough review of Part 1 of the EAF with attachments, and Part 2 and 3 of the EAF prepared by the board superintendent, comments received from the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, and technical responses thereto concerning activities proposed for connecting to the Ashokan Reservoir, and comments received from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, concluding that no historic or archaeological resources would be impacted, the board finds that no significant adverse environmental effects will arise from this action to construct and utilize, if necessary, a temporary connection to the Ashokan Reservoir during reconstruction of the Cooper Lake Dam. Upon motion made and seconded, it is resolved by the Board of Water Commissioners of the City of Kingston, New York, to issue a determination of non-significance under seeker for this action. It is further resolved that the board superintendent is directed to circulate, file, and publish notice of this negative determination as required by the seeker regulations, and again, the statute is cited.
So that's the resolution we're looking for
Yes,
someone to make that motion.
yes.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, a second.
I'll second it.
Okay,
What do you think the reaction is going to be by the state of New York, Judy?
They'll be fine.
They're okay with it? Okay.
You mean the DEC?
Of course, right?
Yes, we've had discussions with them regarding this, the way we've approached this before. They're fine. DEP, we had a long meeting with the DEP. I think they're on board with this.
Great. Okay, good.
okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it's carried.
Thank you. The only other thing I want to mention on the Cooper Lake process is that we have sent our stormwater permit applications into DEC already. And once we send out, finalize the notification on the seeker negative declaration, then we'll be able to submit everything for their review, and then we'll be able to move ahead.
It's great.
Okay. Anything else on Cooper Lake?
Nope, no, not at all.
Okay. Transmission line rehab project.
The vaults were set on Friday. There's 2 new vaults going in below the hill at Binneywater. They were set on Friday. They had a 30-ton crane there on the side of Sawkill Road. Everything went well. Our next kind of momentous, kind of remarkable milestone there is the week after July 4th, where if we're on schedule, we're going to do the tie-ins below the hill. So we've done the 2 on the top. So the influent and the effluent are connected at the reservoir. And now we're going to connect them at the 3 transmission mains as they go under the thruway. That'll be our next long couple of days. And then after that, the project is largely done, except for, minor site remediation and some other things. So we're moving forward and the end is clearly in sight.
So those connections are going to be done after July 4th, did you say?
Yeah, yes, it'll be, this July 4th is a Saturday. So we're thinking that probably Tuesday of that following week is the schedule. Now, if something, they have a lot of pipe work to do between now and then. They put the vaults in, now they got to put the pipes in down there. So if they have, we haven't had any rain, but if they have, a week of rain, we could be a little bit later.
Okay, so hopefully by next meeting, you'll have an update about how that all went.
Yes, yes. We've seen some positive benefits so far in our flows, because we evidently had a valve leaking. So if you've ever looked at the summary and said, how can the compliance point have more water than is being sent out of Binney water? And we always thought it was the meters were just incorrectly installed. It's because there was a valve that was cracked. It sent some of the water, instead of going up to Binney water, was going directly into the city. So it was a pleasant surprise to find that and make that correction. Ryan's crew has been wonderful. They've been out there in the ticks and the weeds, finding valves, turning valves. It's been a process that we think, in my mind, the first 2 tie-ins to the top were going to be the challenge and the nail biters. Hopefully we're over that hurdle, and the ones down below are going to be a piece of cake.
Okay, anything else on that then?
That's it.
Okay. We 2020.
Well, we've been working on the scope of that project to make sure that if we have a grant and a match, so we have a $1.5 million project, that we use that money efficiently, and that's the total project budget. So we're working, we have the SCADA kind of identified the things that we need to continue with. We're going to work on the valves, and by next meeting, hopefully I'll have a budget estimate and a breakdown, and then we can move forward. The design parts of this should not be difficult. The SCADA, obviously, that work has largely been done. So.
And is there a deadline for that submission?
No.
Okay.
I mean, if we don't do something, they'll call us and say, are you guys really interested in this? But that hasn't happened yet. I think all the state agencies, health, EFC, I mean, they're all doing what we're all doing, working remotely. And so, and the state has had, I think, a slew of health department has had a slew of retirements. So
the 1.5 million that you talked about,
right,
has already been granted to us.
Well, I think 60% of that is a grant, and the balance of that has to come from an EFC loan. So I think it's a $900 outright grant, and then the balance comes from a loan, a low interest loan that we qualified for.
So we just have to come up with an appropriate project, is what you're saying, to meet.
Well, we wrote the grant obviously based on, continuing the SCADA work to round out that project that we've previously been funded, and to do some critical valves that we need to have replaced in our distribution system. So we sort of made the list up for the SCADA, the items that need to be corrected and needed to be enhanced. And we're going, and then the valves are the next piece. So I've counted all the valves. We're not going to get them all done, but we need to prioritize which valves we know are problematic in areas of town where we're having a hard time getting these mains shut down. And then we'll have, by then we should be able to draw this to a close and have a budget by the next meeting.
Okay. Quarry Street.
I haven't gotten back to Dennis to sit down with him again to work out a budget with this. So I ask your patience. I will have something for you next month.
Okay. The roundabout.
They're working, obviously, as everyone can see. I have a meeting on the 15th on Monday at 8:30 with Ryan. We're gonna meet him. It sounds as if they're gonna want to talk about doing some valve work up there, doing some valve installs, and then beginning the water mains in earnest up there. So we'll know more about what they're gonna do. We have plans, we know what they're gonna do. One of the concerns that Ryan and I had was they were telling us that there's a small section of water main that's going to be 12.5 feet deep, and it's going to be under the sewer that they encase in concrete. Well, we're never going to be able to fix that. So there's got to be a solution so that we don't have a main that's 12.5 feet deep encased in concrete. So, and we can work, I'm sure we can work that out. There's some options and some other things that we can do. Comes to mind, instead of concrete, use K-Crete because we can dig through it. So it's much
So
easier on site in the field.
none of our work has been done yet.
Not that
Really?
no, not at all, no.
Okay. What's the piping? Is that the sewer line that goes down, Broadway? Couple of buildings?
Dr. Hudson, isn't it?
Mayor, you go?
They're
Working on sewer now, basically in front of the anchor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they're doing infiltration work kind of out on the other side of East St. James right now.
Okay.
And then that morphs into the city sidewalk streetscape project. And so it's hard to tell where one stops and the other one starts. So, yeah.
Okay. Tech City.
Bills are being paid.
Good.
The county
Vital.
buildings are up and running. They've paid their bill for the water that they've consumed. And so it all comes out of the Tech City account. County's paying their portion, and the farm table is paying the balance. And, until they all abandon the site, that'll continue.
Is there any date that anybody's been talking about when?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think COVID has really put a damper on a lot of things. So.
And how much is the county actually using that building? How much water are they using? Is it substantial or not really?
Matt might know better than I, but I don't think so. I mean, they're not occupied. They're
Yeah, it wasn't a ton of money. I forget exactly the dollar value, but it wasn't a lot.
they're flushing, and they're still working on bringing separate gas and electric into those buildings. So I think Central Hudson and the county are working together on that project. So they're bringing independent gas and electric in.
Okay. Do you want to do the GIS and the treatment chemical bills next?
Sure. When I sent out the board packet, I just neglected to put it on the agenda. We've been trying to implement GIS with the goal being that our distribution crews would be able to go to a location to do a mark out with a tablet, and they'd be able to click on it and not only have our distribution map, but gate valve books, eventually tap records and everything behind it. And we've got the disparate pieces. We really do. We have the equipment, we have the software, we have the hardware, and we've got the records. But in talking to Paul Cabral from CDM, it's pretty cost effective to talk to a consultant like CDM to be able to help you get started, to digitize your maps if that's necessary, and to give you a work plan. Because he said people embark on this on their own, and then at the end they hand it to a consultant and they say, here, can you put this all together for us? And in a lot of the time, you end up having to spend more money and redo things. So the budget, we had a good call the other day. Ryan was on it, Debbie was on it. For a cost not to exceed $10,000. And I know, these times it's probably not a good idea to embark on a lot of expensive capital projects, but it's broken down into 3 tasks. And I got a breakdown from Laura of the tasks. And the first 2 tasks, which are really, I think, what we're going to be looking at in 2020, are the first task is $1,300. Their estimate for the second task is $2,500. So that's a total of $3,800 in this budget year. And the balance would be relegated to us calling them for consults or review, which we're kind of in control of. And that isn't going to be really money that we would need to allocate or appropriate till 2021. So, I'm kind of excited that this would be a tool that after the skater, I don't know how we lived without it, quite honestly. The other day, it was really neat to be able to click on the SCADA and say, well, Cooper Lake is full and spilling over, and Mink Hollow is sending us 5.2 million gallons back into the reservoir every day. We never had that kind of information. It's just, pretty amazing. So I would ask that you consider that proposal from them.
So it would be a motion not to exceed $10,000.
Right,
And you're
yeah.
expecting that only about 3,800 of it would be actually
In this
spent
budget,
in this
yes.
budget year.
Yes, absolutely. And we're in control of that, because if we don't call them and ask them for help, we don't spend on task 3. It's going to take us that long to go out and get this information and figure out how to do it.
And they'll actually be doing some of the work itself, or?
Well, what they're going to do is when we were talking to AVR, it seems like 100 years ago, we couldn't evaluate that project properly without a hydraulic model. And so CDM developed for us a full-scale hydraulic model of our system. And we've never had the software or the technical ability to bring that model in-house. We just don't have the staff time to be able to utilize that for the cost of $30,000 or $40,000 that we need to bring that onto our server. So they're going to use that hydraulic model as the basis for the GIS. And they have a young GIS specialist that's going to be doing that work. That'll take about a month. And then part of task 2 is they're going to have a video seminar with all the people in the water department that are going to need to implement this, and how to go about it, and what kind of information you have to collect, and what format that has to be. And then we'll go about, when they build it, they're also, what kind of information do we want in there? We have databases on a bunch of different things that are all disparate, and even if you don't get them all in this model in the first year, if you have a placeholder for that information eventually, 5 years down the road, we can work on integrating that. We have all our hydrants are on a database. Our meters are all GPSed, or they can be. We don't necessarily have a reason to do that right now, but it's pretty easy to do all these things. And, it's kind of a continuous process. At the end of it, you're going to end up with a pretty powerful tool that our folks can use and improve our efficiencies in our service.
But would it be our staff that would actually be doing inputs into this program? Like,
Yes.
this valve is located here on the corner of.
Yes. And my experience is there's 2 ways to approach this. One is the way the city of Troy, I think, did it, and they actually had CDM come in at a much higher price and soup to nuts do most of this, hiring college kids in the summer to do these inputs. Other people have done it the way we've done it, largely a guided kind of self-implementation. And they've done that in Plattsburgh and other places successfully for about the same cost that they're proposing for us. So, yeah. A lot of it would be database entry. Some of it could be field work. I mean, when the guys go out and see the map and the map doesn't match with what they see in the field, then they can make notes there, and then Ryan can approve those, and then the map gets changed, kind of a thing. So
We need a motion then
I'll make that motion.
to spend up to, not to exceed $10,000.
yes,
Make the motion to approve the proposal from CDM for assistance to implement GIS not to exceed a cost of $10,000.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
thank you.
carried. Thank you.
And the last item that we forgot to include was the chemical bids, which went out to bid for our water treatment chemicals. This is the list. Can everybody see that?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Hang in there.
That's good.
Let it go. That's good. Well, this is the total. We received these bids today. We went out for 3 chemicals: our liquid alum, our coagulant, sodium hypochlorite, and hydrated lime. We've previously extended the contract for chlorine with Jones Chemical. We got one. Premier Water Solutions sent us a notice of no bid, and the other 3, these were the bids. So right now, this is a resolution that I wrote that Bill has reviewed and approved. Holland Chemical was the low bidder for liquid alum at 22 cents per pound. That's up maybe a penny a pound from previously. These 3 vendors are our current suppliers. So, I mean, that makes it easy for the transition. Slack Chemical got both the hypochlorite bid and the hydrated lime bid. Slack hypochlorite is at 9.82 cents per gallon, and the hydrated lime is at $0.213 per pound, or 213 cents per pound.
And is that an increase over what we're currently paying?
I believe it is. Matt Matt put this together. He knows not to put him on the spot, but he knows what we're currently paying.
Yeah, as I think Judy had mentioned, the lime was about a penny more. It was 0.21, I believe. The sodium hypochlorite was 969. And I just pulled up the last lime invoice. It was actually 0.23, so that's down a little bit.
Right, okay.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve these vendors.
Yeah, and the bid, I mean, I wrote I don't know if you can read it, but
I'll make the motion, we approve bidders as presented.
I'll second.
Is that a second, Peg?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second to accept these vendors for these prices. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
thank you.
Okay. Well, the next item would be correspondence. Judy?
Yeah, I think I included all the complaints that we had, those 3 that we had gotten. I'm not sure there's any, you may want to have some discussion, but there's certainly no action because, the people that have asked, Mr. Charis hasn't gotten back to me on whether he wants to appeal to the board. It's up to you.
You've already responded to him, though.
I did. He wrote to the mayor. He was kind enough to give me a hard copy of everything he sent to the mayor. And I felt that it really deserved a clarification. And I did that. I sent that out and I included that in the packet. And I asked him if he didn't like my decision, because I said that we couldn't make any adjustments based on what he had provided, but I did say that if he could show us proof that we received that letter that he included in his complaint, we'd be happy to make that adjustment. Anyway, I haven't heard back from him. I don't think the mayor's heard back from him, because he's been pretty good about, Mr. Charis is very good about copying, whoever he needs to.
Do you have a lawyer for that closing, Judy, or do it himself?
Pardon me?
Did he have a lawyer for that closing?
I don't believe he did. He's I would say he has a large number of properties in the city. He's a landlord. I think that's his central business. And I think part of his business plan is to buy distressed properties, and he returns them to, rental property. And so, if you go by his properties, they seem to be in good condition. He pays all his bills. I think he's the kind of landlord that the city probably would like to attract. But this property he bought at a foreclosure sale from a holding company, and he didn't request a final.
What's the amount that's outstanding that he's looking for relief from?
$50.
Okay.
If he had spent $30 for the final reading, the minimum bill, one of those minimum bills would have gone to the bank, the holding company, and the other one would have been his. One of his other confusions, I think, is that he went into the property, he saw the meter sitting on the floor. When the meter's on the floor, that's something the bank does to winterize the property, but it's certainly done without us approving it. And in fact, you're not supposed to touch our meters. But as long as that meter is sitting on the floor, we don't know it's disconnected from the plumbing. It's still in the property, and we're still getting a minimum read on it. And when Jane sees same reading 2 quarters in a row, she issues a work order and sends our folks out to check to make sure those properties are vacant, rather than a stop meter. And that property's been vacant for a while. And so it didn't ring any bells, because he didn't do a final reading. We didn't have a new address to send him the bills. And when Jane saw all that come through the assessor's office in May, she, said she has a relationship with him because of all his other properties. They're on a first name basis. She deals with him regularly, and she thought as a courtesy she'd send him the outstanding bills. And that's what triggered his complaint.
Okay, so at this point in time, there's nothing else you need from the board.
No,
Okay.
I don't think so, unless Bill disagrees. I would also say that if such time that he does want to appeal this to you and you have to render a decision, that if it's to deny his claim, we do a formal resolution, because then his next court of appeal is a legal one. And because my experience with Mr. Charis is he is persistent.
Okay.
So,
He didn't appeal did he?
pardon me?
He did not appeal the last one. That
He
was
did
an
not.
error.
He did not. He did not. And that one was for significantly more money, because the outside reader had been ripped out, and we had not been able to get a reading on gaining access to the meter until he took possession of it. Again, he had an attorney that time. And there was like $500 owing on the meter. So it was unfortunate, because anyway, it happened.
The second one has to deal with a late fee.
Yeah.
When did we start waiving our late fees?
Not, she's a zone 4 customer, Matt, right? And this was, she's in zone 4 and we started with zone 5, which is why extending it the way you did tonight gives, now it's back to zone 4. So all 7 zones have had a chance at the waiver.
She was just a reading behind
Mhm.
for the waiver.
Yeah, she was, and she had the bill since February, and she could have put it in the night deposit box, and I don't know what can, it's unfortunate.
So have we corresponded back to her in any way, or do we normally, or?
I will, but I mean, she asked specifically to bring it to your attention, and Jane has had conversations with her. I don't know if Matt, if you've talked to her. I know Jane talked to her for quite a while one day.
I think I know who she was the day she dropped it off, but I didn't talk to her since then.
Okay.
Dropped off the penalty?
When she made her payment on the 25th, a day late.
Right, but on the 25th, she paid what?
Just
The penalty also?
No penalty, no.
Has she paid the penalty yet?
I don't believe she has.
Okay.
Isn't it saying, please refund my 1609?
Yeah, she must have paid it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're taking no action at this point in time unless you want to respond back then, right?
Well, yeah, and I'd be happy to tell her that you're unable to waive the late fee.
She has not paid the late fee yet.
Okay.
And I would assume our attorney's recommendation is, again,
Same. There's no action taken.
okay. So do we need a motion, though?
I don't believe so. Do you, Judy? I don't think so.
No, I don't think
Just
so.
Okay, so
reporting.
you'll respond back to the board, denied her request?
Yeah. I'll word it as yes. Tell her that it's regrettable, but we're unable to waive late fees.
Okay. And the last one is pretty much at this point in time for our information.
I believe so.
Okay.
An email that was sent to the mayor after a very unpleasant encounter with this guy. And since then, I've had some very positive conversations with the manager, the site manager out to the Esopus farm. They weren't, they have a new manager out there. She wasn't aware.
Did they spray the plants?
Pardon me?
They sprayed the plants?
Yeah, but
Did
and they did, but in our defense, they didn't look like edible plants at the time because they were very
I
small.
mean, today, I mean, if you have a mark out, do you spray? If you have a mark out, do you spray bushes? I mean,
Yeah,
this
these were tiny.
wash off.
No, but he's the real issue is not the plants. The real issue is the actual paint because he's an organic farmer. And so,
Oh yeah.
no, he has some very specific rules that he has to follow if he wants to maintain that status. And he has to remove soil down to 8 inches. And so it's a big deal. It really is. And to him, and I mean, it's a big deal in general, but I can't ask anybody to make reparations when we just did what we were legally obligated to do. Since then, I've talked to the manager out there, and she knows that if there are any other further markouts that need to come in, and she's going to alert everybody, they need to tell us to be able to please flags only. We don't typically flag these because flags get moved and we're liable for the markouts. So, and it was probably the 10th or 11th one Kyle had done that day. It was, routine. He went out and they watched him do it, and they didn't, I don't think they ever registered with him what he was doing. had they said, hey, what are you doing? Or whatever. It was just a unfortunate circumstance all around.
You know, Judy, also, I don't know if this will help at all, but that paint is probably not water soluble. So they shouldn't have to go down 6 to 8 inches to remove any soil. I don't know if you want to point that out to them.
Well, I could, but
I don't know if it'll
Well,
help at all.
it was a rather unpleasant encounter, I will say that. I know Ryan's he's listening here, and I mean, he would certainly agree. His encounter was much more unpleasant than mine. Anyway. Yeah, you're right, Joanne, and I can mention that to Lisa, and I even offered to send them all the MSDSs and all those things to see what was actually in the paint. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Okay. So there's nothing else on correspondence?
nothing.
Superintendent's report? Any questions?
Motion to accept.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The only other thing that I had that's not necessarily on the agenda is the Johnson Controls meter.
Yeah, Bill and I chatted about that briefly this afternoon. Kind of a quick scenario is that Johnson Controls, as anybody who was here for the last couple of years, we know that they did it. We signed an agreement with them to see if it was cost effective for them to replace our meters, and we'd have to gain revenue to do that. And we did that. And they made a presentation to us, and everyone concluded that their calculations did not show that it was cost effective to move forward with this project. In the agreement, it says that if that happens, we don't owe them anything. But if they can show that there's a project and the board declined to move forward with that project, we owe them $75,000. A couple weeks ago, I got an email from them that said, hey, they've got a new algorithm and now they think that there is a project. And so give them a call. I was busy, I didn't. And I got another email a couple of days ago that said, please send them a check for $75,000. I forwarded that email, Dennis, to you, to Matt, and to Bill. But somewhere between my computer and Bill's computer, Bill never read it, never saw it. So when he was in this afternoon, I gave him a copy of the agreement, and I think I still haven't had an opportunity to forward him that email, but he's going to review those, and we'll figure out.
My question, Judy, is this is back in 2017.
Yep.
That we signed the agreement, and in the completion dates they have on that agreement, it says they would commence their study in June of 2017 and complete their evaluation in August of 2017. And they would finalize the contract in September of 17, right?
Yeah.
So nothing happened. Can you remember off the top of your head approximately when they came back and said we made the decision it wasn't feasible financially? Would have been before September?
But no, those milestones that are in that agreement were pushed back. And it was 2 years ago when they made that presentation to the board. And we came to the
When you say they
conclusion.
pushed back, did we formally agree to change the finalized performance date of the contract?
I'm sorry, what?
Did we agree to change the date for the finalization performance contract?
Well, I think they came to a board meeting, and I mean, I don't know if we formally
I
agreed.
think so. I remember coming in, but I don't think we ever did anything further in writing with them.
No, we never did.
So they had by September of 2017, 3 years ago, to act on this, to finalize the contract, and they never did. So I don't see that they're obligated. I don't see the obligation here.
I hope so. I hope you don't. But understand that those dates were put in the contract in good faith, and they never hit any of those milestones.
And then my next question is that, I mean, originally the board thought this was a good project. And
No.
now you said, huh?
The board
Well-
thought that this was a possible good
I mean,
if the
I mean
numbers
the
work,
agreement.
it would be a good project. They signed, yeah.
Okay, now they're saying the numbers work.
Yeah, they have a new algorithm that they're using to run the numbers, which they didn't
Okay.
have before.
Well, if they were correct, if that is a correct one,
I don't know.
would it be board's benefit to pursue it? That's what I don't know.
I don't know. I think, let me send you the email and we can, we can have a conversation with this gentleman. But,
Can we put this off till next month? Is there a rush?
no, I don't think so. I mean, what are they gonna
Mind
do?
it? Yeah.
I mean, you
I mean,
didn't
should we-
have the information to make any kind of recommendation since you didn't get those emails.
Well, I see this thing just September of 17. I mean, that's well past. They're coming to us 3 years later. But on the other side of the coin, if they're now saying that they have restudied this and it is beneficial for us to proceed with this project,
Right.
does the board want to proceed with the project? In other words, would it be a cost saving? I don't know.
Well, we would have to see what they propose, I guess, to make that
You have-
determination.
And you haven't seen that, Dennis, have you?
No,
Wow, no one has really.
Oh, yeah, but should see that.
the other thing that I would like to suggest is that 2 years ago, when we reached this conclusion based on their recommendation, we were in a different place in terms of what projects we were pursuing and where we were going. And now, all of a sudden, how many times can they redo these calculations and come back to us and say,
Mhm.
well, we took 2 bites out of the apple and we didn't have a project and now we do. Is that indefinite? Can it go on forever?
No, that's what I mean. The finalization or the project completion with the
Right.
signing of the contracts haven't passed. I agree.
I mean, we weren't
Good deal.
we weren't doing Cooper Lake. We're poised to start that project. That's a huge financial undertaking. And now, I don't know if the timing is right, but I agree, we should I'll pull out the dates for all the milestones when we actually got feedback from them and what we got. And Matt and I'll kind of put that together and send it over to you and then
We
we'll have
can talk.
right.
Was there any correspondence though, back and forth after they came and met with us? I think they actually met with us 2 different times because they
Right.
changed their calculations from the first meeting to the second meeting. And I think we all left the meeting with the agreement that we didn't have a project.
Right.
I guess I'm looking for some documentation that we had that communication back and forth of that conversation. Check your old emails or something?
I have all my emails, sure. I mean, ask Kyle McIntosh hates it because I have all my emails.
Okay.
I keep getting, IT keeps sending me cryptic notes that says, please purge some of, your folder's too big. Yeah, I have all of them.
Should we at least respond saying we're referring it to our attorney or just be silent on everything? And
I think Bill's recommending that we have a conversation with this guy via the telephone.
okay,
I think. Is that not correct, Bill?
Yeah, I don't want to say, we're turning over to our attorney now because, okay, we'll turn over our attorney. Then
okay.
the last one happens to attorneys talking to one another.
Well, and they have more attorneys than we have. Not that they're any better, but I mean,
But they're not any better, Judy. You know that.
I know they're not, but I mean, if they exhaust one, they've got another one standing to take his place.
Oh, I got my cooker in the background. That's all right.
Okay, so Judy and Bill will discuss, talk about it, review it, and Judy or son will get back to them and
Yeah,
figure out what the next step is.
Yeah, we'll talk to you, Dennis.
And
Okay,
we'll also, Matt and I are poised tomorrow to figure out how to do executive session via Zoom. And I think Matt figured it out today and we're going to try it during our staff meeting tomorrow. So.
okay. Just want to make sure, I wasn't sure who you sent that to other than Bill and myself, so.
I only sent it to you and Bill and Matt, just so that we could have a conversation,
Right.
but, somehow I messed up because Bill never got it. So that's right.
Well, I don't know. I might have gotten, maybe I just overlooked it. I don't know. Not your fault.
Okay.
Might have been. We'll see.
So we have nothing for executive session, I'm assuming?
No, and I can't figure out how to put us in one, so it's okay.
Okay.
Works out well.
It worked
Do
out
we have
well.
anything else on the agenda?
No, I pretty much shot the wad here. Yeah.
No. Okay. Bill, I didn't set any records tonight.
Yeah, Dennis, I was just thinking that, just for the watch. But you did well.
Okay,
Yeah, you had
then
your meeting. You did 2 meetings.
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then, I guess.
I'll make the motion, we adjourn the June meeting.
Second for that? Okay, thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you all. Guess we'll see you all
Be well,
next month.
everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay.
Stay safe,
Bye-bye.
everybody.